But I also want to talk to you about another old firearms instructor who sadly is no longer with us, and that's Jeff Cooper. Jeff Cooper was a pioneer in teaching pistol craft, also fantastic with rifles, but best known for his pistol instruction. He established a very famous firearms defensive shooting school, gun site in Arizona. I was fortunate enough to take a class taught by Jeff in 1996. And he was a great guy, very good instructor, really set the foundation for every modern firearms instructor today. For all practical purposes, we stand on the shoulders of giants, of those who went before us. And I took Jeff's class in 1996, and he passed just a decade later, 2006. We lost Jeff. So I can't tell you where to go to his website to try to get a class with him because he's no longer available, obviously. But he wrote a number of excellent books. This is one of them here, Principles of Personal Protection, part of which we'll talk about in today's show, still available on Amazon, folks. And in my view, everything that Jeff wrote is well worth owning and reading. Everything. And not all of it's self-defense stuff, but even that stuff is great. So what do I want to talk about from Jeff's teachings today? I want to talk about Jeff's color codes of awareness. And if you search this on the internet, you'll see various forms of it. Some people teach it as it has 5 levels today. Jeff didn't teach it that way. Jeff taught 4 levels of awareness, and that's what we'll cover here today. This is part of the lessons we can learn from this scenario. And the lowest level of awareness is what Jeff referred to, and he described these in terms of color codes to make it easy to kind of remember, is white. White is effectively no awareness, largely or entirely unaware of what's going on around you, completely non-ready to respond to any threat in your environment. And there's lots of reasons you might be in white. I mean, the most common reason is that you're literally asleep. So you're not conscious of your environment. Or it could be fatigue. It could be stress, distraction. You're focused on something else, right? You're reading a book, or you're today, who reads books anymore, right? You're looking at your smartphone. And you're focused on that, and that means you're not in a state of white with respect to your phone, but you're in a state of white with respect to your environment, because all of your attention is focused on that phone. Same if you're walking around wearing earbuds, listening to stuff and just not paying attention to your environment. Or it could be impairment, right, due to drugs, alcohol, things along those lines. White is switched off. No responsible adult male has any business being in white in a public environment. That's not under your control. If you're out in public, you cannot be in white. Children can be in white. Women can be in white. Simps can be in white, I guess. But if you're a responsible adult male who takes your responsibility seriously, you're never in white in public. Where you normally are is the next level of awareness, which is what Jeff described as yellow. This is relaxed alertness. So this is not energy consumptive. This is very easy to maintain normal as your default state. Calm and relaxed, alert and aware, observant of people around you. You turn your head and you look around. When you're about to walk into a convenience store, you look through the glass first before you open the door and step in to see if there's an armed robbery going on. This just becomes common sense to you. But you will note that people who are cognizant of the importance of being in yellow, they do turn their head and they look around a lot more, because being situationally aware is not a snapshot of your environment. Your environment's fluid. So it's more like a revolving radar. You have to be rescanning all the time. But it becomes very normal when you become accustomed to this. Again, not energy intensive, easy to sustain. You're observant of the people around you, their conduct, their body language. Are you being eyeballed? Are you being surrounded? Are you being flanked? And very important to make sure you're doing this when you're in a more dangerous environment. The more dangerous the environment, the higher the intensity of yellow you need to be in. You're in Bed-Stuy at 4 a.m. Everybody should at least be in you're not just sitting on a bus bench ignoring people going by. And you're looking around constantly. Now, the important aspect of yellow is that you don't, in fact, have a particular or even general potential threat that you've noted in your environment. Everything's cool. now. There's nothing that's focusing your attention on anything, any direction, any area in particular. In this scenario, when we're here, oh, come on, where's my video? Here. Right at the beginning. Oh, I didn't catch it at the beginning. Sorry. Okay. If that guy is not in front of them on the bench, they should still be more aware than they are here, right? They're in condition white here. I mean, they're aware of each other, but they're not aware of their environment. When this dude goes walking by them, they should at least, in a transitory way, be not even in yellow anymore, but escalate beyond level, given the other surrounding circumstances. Bed-Stuy, 4 a.m., they should be in orange. Orange is when there's a threat detected, or at least a potential threat detected. It could be general. It could be noise you're hearing, people shouting from out of sight. It could be a specific potential threat, like this guy at 4 a.m. in Bed-Stuy. So you've sensed a general or specific potential threat in your immediate environment, and you're actively assessing that threat. So your attention is focused specifically on that threat, and you're making an evaluation of that threat. Now, I would suggest a useful way to do this evaluation is using another cognitive framework called the AOJ triad. We're going to discuss that in just a moment. But it's helpful to have a well-defined framework for making this evaluation. So it's not just speculative or imaginative or unstructured or ambiguous. You want to make decisive decisions in self-defense, you have to be able to evaluate in a decisive manner. And while you're evaluating the threat, you're also simultaneously taking measures to mitigate physical and legal risk. So, for example, ego-less de-escalation and evasion. Preferably evasion first. I should have flipped those. Just walk in the other direction. These people on the bench could have just walked in the other direction. That's what I would have done at speed. And evasion is what you're really doing when you're not yet being targeted by the threat, right? You're not yet on the radar screen, so you're removing yourself from the environment so you don't end up on the radar screen. De-escalation is what happens when you are on their radar screen. What the F are you looking at? You're on that guy's radar screen. What can you do to de-escalate now? And the de-escalation, I would suggest, needs to be ego-less, which can be hard to do. We all have egos. We're all being treated in a insulting manner. What the F are you looking at? I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to kill you. Nobody likes to be treated like that. But you don't make better decisions when your ego gets engaged, right? What do you tend to do? I mean, if you're a certain type of person, you tend to become more confrontational yourself. If you're being treated, imagine a 1 to 10 scale and kind of combative energy, and that person's giving you a 7. Well, many of us men, when we were younger men and more foolish than we are today, we would meet and exceed that 7. We'd go to 8, and then that guy would go to 9, and then we'd go to 10. The fight would be on. But you don't want to be fighting fights you don't have to get into, folks. That's not the behavior of responsible adults. You damn well want to be able to win fights that come to you, but you don't want to be going to the fight. Because, as I always say, when the moment you go hands-on in the fight, you've just incurred 2 risks you were not incurring a moment before. Physical and legal. Of course, in this case, we have the ultimate physical risk, which is death in the fight. You don't know how that fight's going to spin up. And I don't care how good you are with a knife or a gun or jiu-jitsu or anything else. Nobody's invulnerable. It could just not be your day. You could try to take a step and trip over a bus bench and become an easy target for a stab to the heart. Complicate your ability to defend yourself, perhaps, because you have a woman with you that you have an obligation to defend. Lots of things can go wrong. This person could turn out to have friends. So there's never 0% risk of losing the fight. And the cost of losing the fight could be your life, as it was here. And even if you survive the fight, you may find yourself criminally charged for your use of force and what you think and may have been self-defense, but it might be put to the test in a trial. And then there's never a 0% chance of getting convicted. Always greater than 0 chance of getting killed or getting convicted once the fight is on. So you don't want to be getting into fights you don't need to. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth the cost. So if you can not fight, consistent with safety and consistent, I don't mean be subservient. I don't mean be begging for your life. In fact, I think that's counterproductive. I think that just makes you look like a more attractive target for criminal predation. And of course, this is a law show, so I'm really getting into tactical considerations here. But you ought to be presenting yourself as someone who is ready to defend yourself, but doesn't want to unless you have to. Not weak, not cowering, not stuttering, not afraid. Please don't hurt me. Please, please, please. But someone who doesn't want to fight, but is ready to fight. Head up, shoulders up, hands up, and setting boundaries. Ideally, both boundaries you're communicating to the other person and your own mental boundaries. And what do I mean by boundaries? I mean lines that, if they are crossed, will compel you to escalate your own combative energy and perhaps all the way to 10 and go hands-on. The nature of fighting in self-defense is that you're doing nothing in terms of using force, and then suddenly you have to flip a switch to 200%. Bad guys don't have that constraint. But a setting for a boundary would be, dude, I'm really sorry you're upset. Did I take your parking spot? Whatever they're screaming about, and said, listen, I didn't mean to be eyeballing you. Just didn't mean it. But don't come any closer. If you want to talk about this, you got to stay back there. You got to stay at least 10 feet away. And that's also a mental boundary for you. If he does violate that boundary, and it's a mental boundary for you, whether or not you've communicated it or he's heard it. Because closing proximity enormously increases the degree of threat. And there comes a point where they're close enough, you can't wait anymore. And I would suggest you need to make that decision a hard boundary for your own response to the violation of the boundary. To go to a weapon, to go to pepper spray, to go to a clinch. If you do jujitsu, do a takedown. So you need to look as if you are prepared to defend yourself if necessary, but you prefer not to, and establish hard boundaries. Very helpful. By the way, knowing that you can, in fact, have a reasonable prospect for defending yourself really fosters the ability to do this kind of egoless de-escalation. Because if you have nothing in your toolbox, if you're just a victim waiting to be plucked, you're going to be scared. I mean, you're likely to be scared anyway, but you'll be a scared person with no options. And that leads to panic. And we don't make better decisions under panic. Now, of course, in some circumstances, de-escalation won't work, right? I don't know that it would have worked here. I mean, he tried some kind of de-escalation, chill, please, please, please. But what I do know is that this guy had no practical means of actually defending himself against attack, any kind of attack. Not that were demonstrated here in this video, which is unfortunate. Because orange, threat detected, de-escalation is being attempted, evasion is being attempted, consistent with safety, don't increase your jeopardy. But if you can avoid the fight, consistent with your safety and the safety of other people you have an obligation to protect, then that's the prudent thing to do. Prudent thing to do. Again, I don't tell people what to do. You want to get confronted and go right to 10 and get in a fight? Someone has to pay for my costly German motorcycle habit. It may as well be you.